What's up, ladies and gentlemen? I was sitting here waiting on the doors to open, and I had an idea. I wanted to speak to you guys about something that's been on my heart and my mind for a while, and I'm just now taking a minute out to speak on it. So this is for those of you who specifically have friends or family members who are suffering from chronic fear. What? You may ask yourself and or me, chronic fear is not a real thing. So I'm not actually a medical professional, but I do think I can use chronic in this specific instance. I'm not really positive how it's supposed to be used. But the reason I use it is to emphasize the gravity of the situation. Here's what I'm talking about. There are some people, might be even yourself, who are afraid of everything. Change, things outside of their comfort zone, taking that step, trying that thing, talking to that person, going on that trip, trying new foods, any number of things. But it's the kind of thing where it's not just a one-off thing. It's that they're always afraid. And this isn't like if someone that you think may be afraid to do something, or like if you want them to do something, so you say, you stop being afraid. Not like that, but like someone who has opened up to you and told you, right, that they are afraid of specific things. Also, one of the situations that occurs is lack of confidence, right? So you have fear of things and lack of confidence. Those things often go together. This is important. When you become aware that someone has chronic fear, is what I'm calling it. I don't know what the official term is. When you find out that someone is afraid of everything, there are certain things that people often do. I want to touch on it in this moment because it's incredibly unhelpful. I myself, as opposed to someone else, I struggle with chronic fear. I'm afraid of so many things, it would blow your mind. The good news is I am getting over it. The bad news is I'm not over all of it yet. But and again, this goes for someone who has told you that they are afraid of a thing, not someone who you think is afraid of a thing. Because people may not actually be afraid, they just have no interest. But also, chronic fear can show itself in terms of lack of interest. I just don't want to do the thing can translate to I am so deathly afraid of it that in my brain I switch from interest to I'm starting to get concerned. Can switch from interest to disinterest because of the amount of fear in one's brain. So one of the things that I hear often was this phrase, specifically on confidence. People would often say, be confident. Be confident. Be confident. Have confidence. Have confidence. Be confident. Believe in yourself. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever not had a lot of money, but I want you to imagine that you are telling your friend that you want to buy a new car, and you don't really have the $47,000 you wanted to spend to get the car that you wanted, and your friend says to you, it's all right, just have money. It's okay. Just have money. Be financially able to buy the car. Be rich. Have money. It doesn't work. It literally has zero, it's like white noise. To hear be confident when I'm not confident is literally white noise, okay? One of the other things that people will say when I was like, if they picked up that I was afraid of something, or I told them that I was afraid of something, people would say to me, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Just do it. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. People with chronic fear are incapable of not being afraid. Imagine it like this. Imagine it as if the only way their brain knows how to function, and I know this because, again, the only way their brain knows how to function is in a position of fear. So it's not a switch that we can just flip on and off. We can't do that. That doesn't work. So to tell us to just don't be afraid is literally white noise. It literally solves nothing. It helps nothing. It doesn't give me any information or any plan of action. Also, never say, what's the worst that could happen? Because when you say, what's the worst that can happen, the first thing I think of is the worst thing that can happen. And then I figure out all the ways that we can get to that specific And then I figure out all the ways I can get to that specific location. One of the things that people with fear at this level do is we automatically think of the worst case scenario. We automatically go to how it can go wrong. It's our default. The thing that we do the easiest is find reasons to not. So giving us reasons to not, as in suggesting what's the worst that could happen, is not actually going to help. Now you may be thinking to yourself, well, I know someone who's afraid of everything. What is something that I can say to actually help them in their fear? The good news is there are things that can and have helped me. I will give them to you, and hopefully they will be able to help you or the person who you know who is struggling with chronic fear. Unfortunately, Door's just opened, so I gotta go. And those three things are the plan, the upside, and the distraction. So here we go. So one of the things that I've always been terrified of is travel. Just for travel's sake, right? Just the idea of being in another country. So many things can happen, right? Like, what's the worst that could happen? Well, I could be kidnapped, killed. I could lose my passport. I could be injured in some fatal way. I could get lost and maybe not die from being attacked or killed, but I could starve to death. I don't speak the language. I wouldn't know how to get help. I could lose my phone and lose all sense of direction. I could just be standing in one place and lose all sense of direction. And one of the things that I've recently come to understand about myself is that a distraction from the thing that I am actually afraid of and being distracted towards something that I enjoy and love is an excellent way to get me around fear. So for example, if I'm afraid to be traveling, I look at something that I love. So camera work, filming, videos, pictures, love that stuff. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna take a camera and go travel. Suddenly, somehow, I'm a lot less afraid. Now, it doesn't have to make sense because I could still be killed, murdered, lost, but the idea of having a camera with me to take pictures eliminates my fear because it refocuses my attention on something else. So the distraction, the idea being, whatever it is you are afraid of, you are distracted by something that you love, eliminating the fear, or at least distracting you from it because it hasn't actually gone anywhere. We're just not paying attention to it anymore. I don't know why I started with the third one in the list. The plan. Here's how the plan works. So let's say I'm afraid to go up and talk to a girl, right? This is a thing that terrified me to my bones. The idea of me approaching an attractive woman and engaging her in conversation literally shut my whole body down. It's not... Like, the fear was so visceral that I would literally feel sick where I was standing. I hadn't even decided to do it, but just the fact that there was an opportunity would shut my body down. So here's a thing that would have helped me, because after that, there have been other things that I was afraid of, and I used this tactic and this technique in order to get myself through the process. The plan. Make a plan. Now, I don't just mean I'm going to go say this and I'm going to do this, she does that. I mean literally step by step. In the specific instance of talking to an attractive woman, these are the things that could be used as steps from not to to. From not to doing. So the first thing you got to do is you got to walk towards her. That's not a very scary thing to do. I'm just gonna walk towards her. If I can move in her direction, move towards her, I've already won. I can go about my day knowing that I accomplished the first thing. Now, I'm not gonna get to talk to her, but that's okay because it's the plan. I'm working the plan. The next time it happens, do it again. Walk towards her. I'm not going to talk to her. I'm not going to engage her. I'm not going to smile at her. I'm not going to look at her. I'm going to walk towards her. That's step number one. Step number two might be get near her. Okay, near. I'm not talking to her. I'm looking at the thing on the other side of her. I am being in the same aisle as her. I am walking past her actual location. That's step number two. If you aren't a person who's afraid to speak to attractive people, and this is going to be completely out of your realm of understanding, but if you are, you can understand how walking up to someone and talking to them can be terrifying, but walking past them is way easier. So step one, walk towards them. Step two, walk past them or approach them or get near them. Step three, and this is where at this point you're gonna actually start doing things. What's a good step three? Getting the thing that's on the other side of her, right? So if you're in a store and she's looking at pears, you would get a pear from the other side of her. So you would ask her to move or ask for the thing. You're not talking to her. You're not engaging her. You're not having a full conversation. You aren't introducing yourself. You're saying, excuse me, can I get that? Excuse me, can I have one of those? That's it, right? You aren't developing a relationship, right? You're still a blip. You're still passing. But what you're doing is you're getting ever so slightly closer to the goal on purpose. Because the notion of talking to someone who is attractive, if that shuts your brain all the way down, then you have to break down and reverse engineer the steps to get to that location of what you're trying to get to. So after you get to that step, then you could do something like engage with her about the thing that she's looking at or that she's doing. And then from that step, you can move to the next step of introducing yourself, and then engage. And from that step, you can move on to the next. So like, but remember, this is not one person you're doing this to. This is a range. This is like over the next 6 months. Whenever you encounter someone and you get that fear in your chest, in your gut, you do the one thing. You do step 1. You do step 1 and 2. You do step 1, 2, and 3. You don't just go all the way in. And if this is someone that you know who has a fear of these things, tell them, look, just break it down. Just do 1. Just walk towards them. If you can walk towards them, you won. You won. Go get some ice cream. Try again another day. Next day, walk towards them. Like step 1 was the distraction. Step 2 is the plan. Step 3 is the upside. There are things that people like me who have chronic fear are afraid of that we don't consider what would happen if it went right? Because all we do is think this is what's wrong and it's going to go wrong and I'm going to die and it's going to be horrible and I'm going to be embarrassed. I'm never going to be able to see the world again. I'm going to go blind. I'm going to stab me in the throat. Like, you think I'm kidding? These are all things that like inhabit our mindset. So, and often we don't even consider what happens if I win. What happens if I get it right? Now, I would say that this method will work for smaller fears, not bigger fears, smaller fears, things that you're just kind of afraid of. So you just kind of ignore it, right? But there are activities, there are places, there are people who, because we're so used to fear, we don't even consider what it means to not have fear of a thing. So like, we're just afraid. So we just, and we just leave, like in our heads, in our minds, we just leave the conversation, as opposed to considering, if I get it right, if I win, if it goes my way, the upside is way better than the downside. If there's a downside, it just kind of sucks, right? Just for a little bit. But if there's an upside, it's what, like, I get this and I get that and I get those and I have these and I meet them. The downside is I get told no. That's literally it. They'll just say no, or they won't be able to get me the thing, or I can't find the thing, or it doesn't work, or there isn't one of those. But if there is, so that's the other one, the upside. The upside, again, for smaller fears, because as I said, people with chronic fear just run through all of the bad things. We just run through all of the worst possible scenarios. So for smaller fears, for things that aren't so drastic, that aren't like world-ending fears, because there are a lot of world-ending fears. And I'm not talking about like the apocalypse. I'm talking about like applying for that job when you only can do half the things that are on the list. Like that, for some people, that's a world ender. But for some people, that's a small fear. They're afraid, so they run, but it's actually a small fear. And so the upside will work for that. It is very important that if you are not the person with chronic fear, but you know someone with it, that you wait until they admit it. The best you can proactively hope for is that we consider it, because we've been living a long time with fear, world-ending apocalypse type fear. And it's rare. It happens, but it's rare that an idea like this, something that actually helps, would just be jumped on and attacked and taken and done, and it works, and it's amazing. You got to give us time. We've been alive with fear for a long time. It's our default position. So give us a minute, and if we trust you, give us some suggestions. Hope this helps you. Hope this helps your friends, your family who are dealing with chronic fear.